the sleepy town of Oakhaven, where every picket fence seemed to smile and the scent of freshly baked bread hung in the air, a peculiar buzz began. It wasn't the chatter of new neighbors or the excitement of a town festival. It was the arrival of Mr. Hoppy Fun. People claimed to have seen this cartoon character in town. For a generation of children, Mr. Hoppy Fun was a household name, a cartoon rabbit with oversized eyes and a perpetually cheerful grin who taught them about shapes, colors, and counting on the TV show Funland. He was a beacon of pure, unadulterated joy. But in Oakhaven, he was something else entirely. For Sloane, a landscape architect with a meticulous eye for detail and her perpetually stressed demeanor, and Alaric, an artist whose chaotic studio was a testament to his free spirit, the news surrounding sightings of Mr. Hoppy Fun was met with a shared parental eye roll. How could people have claimed to see a non-existent children's cartoon character? Alaric and Sloane were a study in contrasts, a fact that had ultimately led to their separation. Their only common ground and the absolute center of their universe was their two children, 10-year-old Zale and his younger sister, 8-year-old Clover. The first sign that something was amiss wasn't a loud bang or a chilling scream. It was a quiet, unsettling disappearance. The town's jovial baker, Mr. Abernathy, known for his signature poppy seed muffins, vanished. His bakery was left with a strange, sugary residue on the floor and a single deflated balloon shaped like a carrot. The local police, led by the stoic Sheriff Thorne, chalked it up to a runaway, a midlife crisis person fueled by flour and yeast. But a few days later, a similar event occurred. The town's grumpy librarian, Ms. Finch, disappeared, leaving behind a stack of books arranged in a perfectly symmetrical pyramid and a single colorful paper chain. Sloane first noticed the change in Zale and Clover. They started talking about their new friend, Mr. Hoppy Fun, who taught them new games. "He taught me how to count to 10 in German, Mom," Zale said, his eyes wide with an unsettlingly blank look. Clover, meanwhile, giggled about a new drawing game. "He taught me how to draw a perfectly straight line even when I'm wobbly," she chirped. The games they described were simple, the kind Mr. Hoppy Fun would teach. Alaric and Sloane had just summed it up to children's imagination, as their children were fans of the show, happy time with Mr. Hoppy Fun. But the way they talked about him felt off. They spoke in a monotone, a stark contrast to their usual boisterous personalities. One evening, while Alaric was watching the news, a grainy surveillance video from a convenience store was broadcast. It showed a fleeting, shadowy figure lurking behind a dumpster. It had the distinct, oversized ears of a rabbit. It was a silhouette, a cartoonish outline that defied the laws of physics, shifting and stretching as it moved. The town mayor, Mayor Abernathy, was seen on the video, looking over his shoulder, a look of abject fear on his face. The next day, he was gone, and on his doorstep was a meticulously stacked pile of business cards and a small wooden spinning top. Alarm bells finally went off for Sloane and Alaric. They met at the local coffee shop, the air between them thick with unspoken tension and a shared growing dread. "He's not just a shadow," Sloane said, her voice a low whisper. "He's a cartoon, and he's teaching our kids things after their parents disappear." Alaric nodded, his artistic mind piecing together the bizarre clues. "He's replicating the games from his show, but the lessons are tied to the parents' professions, the baker, the librarian, the mayor. It's like he's making a twisted game out of their lives." They had to put their differences aside. Their children were in danger, and no one else in town seemed to understand the bizarre, cartoonish horror unfolding around them. Sheriff Thorne was skeptical, convinced that the disappearances were unconnected and that the Shadow Man was a figment of people's imaginations. Sloane and Alaric, however, knew better. They had to figure out how a fictional character, a cartoon rabbit, could have entered their world. They started with the source, Funland. They watched old episodes, desperate for a clue. The show was simple, harmless, and saccharine sweet. It was all about learning, but as they watched, Alaric noticed a pattern. The show was produced by a small, independent studio called Warped Reality Studios, now defunct. Alaric, being the tech-savvy one, started digging. He found the studio's old website, a relic from the late 90s, and a long-forgotten forum for animators and creators. There, he found it. A post from the original creator of Mr.Hoppy Fun, an eccentric animator named Caspian Phelan. Phelan's post was a rant, a paranoid confession. He spoke of his creation as if it were alive, a character so real it was trying to break through the fourth wall. He had been working on a new episode, a grand finale, where Mr. Hoppy Fun would teach the children about the ultimate game. The episode was never released, but Phelan's final post was a chilling revelation. He believed he had found a way to bridge the gap between their world and the cartoon world, a dimensional ink, and a reality-bending stylus. He'd been trying to bring Mr. Hoppy Fun to life, to make him the ultimate learning tool, but it had gone horribly wrong. The last line of his post read, "He is not what he seems. I didn't create him this way, but he appears to have developed a dark personality on his own. He is a monster. He feeds on innocence, and he is coming for us all." Sloane and Alaric realized that Mr. Hoppy Fun wasn't just a cartoon. He was a character that had been given a twisted, monstrous life by a mad artist. He wasn't here for fun. He was here to play his game, and his pieces were the children of Oakhaven. His lessons were a cruel mimicry of his show, and the disappearances of the parents were the elimination rounds. Word began to get around that there were sightings of a shadow figure resembling Mr. Hoppy Fun in town, and people began to speculate that he cartoonishly murdered the parents and made their bodies disappear. He was also making the children more like him, empty, emotionless, and obsessed with his twisted games. They had to find a way to stop him. They needed a weapon, something that could hurt a cartoon. It had to be something from their world, something real and tangible. Sloane, the landscape architect, knew about the natural world, about boundaries and growth. Alaric, the artist, knew about creation and destruction, about the power of lines and colors. They needed to combine their skills. Late one night, they heard it, the soft, eerie sound of a cartoonish jingle playing from Zale and Clover's room. They crept down the hallway and saw him. They gasped in horror. He was there, in their children's bedroom, not as a shadow, but as a living, breathing cartoon. He was not the Mr. Hoppy Fun they knew. His colors were muted, his eyes were black, and his cheerful grin was a horrifying rictus. He was teaching Zale and Clover a new game, one that involved stacking their toys into a tower that stretched impossibly high, reaching for the ceiling. He was using a strange, gooey substance that looked like melted crayons to hold the toys together. "It's the dimensional ink," Alaric whispered, his eyes wide. "He's made of it. We have to find a way to undraw him." They had a plan, a desperate, last-ditch effort. Sloane remembered a rare, old-growth oak tree on her client's property, a tree known for its incredibly hard wood and natural, fibrous resistance to decay. She also knew that the town's historical society had a collection of antique tools. Alaric, meanwhile, raced to his studio, grabbing his largest canvas, a dozen jars of thick, black acrylic paint, and a handful of his most aggressive, sharp-tipped brushes. They returned to the house, a grim determination etched on their faces. The jingle was louder now. The tower of toys was almost touching the ceiling, and Zale and Clover were giggling, their faces pale and their eyes vacant. Sloane held a piece of the fibrous oak bark in her hand, its texture rough and unforgiving. Alaric held his canvas and a single heavy brush. The Mr. Hoppy Fun cartoon turned his head, his black eyes fixing on them. "A new game," His voice, a high-pitched but sinister and evil warble, announced, "Parents versus Mr. Hoppy Fun. The prize is your children." He lunged at them, but he was a cartoon. He moved in a series of jerky animated movements, stretching and contorting his body to get to them. He was a two-dimensional nightmare in a three-dimensional world. Sloane, using the oak bark like a shield, blocked his advance. The bark, with its natural resistance to decay, seemed to repel his gooey dimensional substance, causing it to sizzle and hiss. "He's a drawing," Alaric shouted, his voice a mix of terror and artistic inspiration. "He's a line on a page. We have to erase him." He slammed the canvas down and began painting. He wasn't painting a picture. He was painting a void, a swirling mass of black. He was using the thick paint to create a black hole, a place where a character like Mr. Hoppy Fun, a being of pure line and color, could not exist. He was fighting fiction with fiction, an anti-cartoon. Sloane, meanwhile, used the oak bark to push back against the cartoon rabbit. The bark, a symbol of the raw, untamed power of nature, was a perfect counter to the artificial, unnatural essence of Mr. Hoppy Fun. Each time she made contact, a small piece of his outline would flicker and disappear. He was undrawing, pixel by pixel. Mr. Hoppy Fun shrieked, a sound like a record skipping. "You're cheating!" "This isn't how the game works. You have to follow the rules," he wailed, his form growing more and more distorted. "There are no rules when you're a monster," Sloane spat, pushing him back with a final, powerful thrust of the oak bark. At that moment, Alaric finished his painting. He held the canvas up, and the swirling black mass seemed to pull the air in the room, a vortex of non-existence. The cartoon, Mr. Hoppy Fun, screamed, a sound that finally woke Zale and Clover from their trance. They looked at their parents, their eyes clear and full of confusion and fear. The cartoon rabbit, his form now a flickering, unstable mess of lines and colors, was sucked into the black canvas. He fought, his elongated ears and arms flailing wildly, but he was no match for the void. With a final, desperate plea, "No more games," he was gone. The canvas went still, and the paint was just paint again. The bizarre, impossibly high toy tower collapsed, and the goo turned into harmless, sticky paste. The nightmare was over. The strange disappearances stopped, and slowly, one by one, the people of Oakhaven returned, disoriented, and with no memory of where they had been. Mr. Abernathy, the baker, was found walking through a field of poppies, a confused look on his face. Miss Finch was found in the library, standing in the middle of a perfectly symmetrical pyramid of books, her expression one of utter bewilderment. Sloane and Alaric never spoke of the events to anyone else. They simply told the children that they had a bad dream, but they knew the truth. They had faced a creature of pure fantasy, and they had won by using their own unique real-world skills. The experience, as terrifying as it was, had brought them closer than ever before. They were a team again, a united front against a world that was sometimes stranger and more dangerous than any cartoon could ever depict. The small coffee shop in Oakhaven became their new meeting place, not to discuss their children's schedules, but to simply sit together in a comfortable silence. Alaric, instead of painting chaotic masterpieces, began to draw simple, beautiful pictures of trees. Sloane, instead of obsessing over perfect gardens, started to sketch fantastical creatures. Their children, Zale and Clover, were back to their normal, boisterous selves, full of life and color. And in the corner of their shared living room, a large canvas rested against the wall, its black surface a reminder of the day they fought a cartoon rabbit and saved their children from the horror of Mr. Hoppy Fun. Please like and subscribe.